Roseanne Bozak,
Here.
Brad Enslin,
Here.
Nick Loving,
Here.
Angela Scott,
Here.
Jennifer McCart,
Here.
and Tom Snobble is absent.
Approval of minutes, October 12th, 2022. Second. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Enslin,
Yes.
Commissioner McCart,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes. Reports, Roseanne.
Nothing.
Angie.
No.
Brad. Nothing. Jen.
No.
Treasurer absent. RBC Attorney Clay. Nothing. Engineer. See you on.
I do not see any of them. to be honest.
RDC consultant, Harbor Redevelopment. Tina.
I'll just provide updates down below.
Said Mr. Schnapp was also absent. Correspondence, was there anything? Old business, Market Greenway update, 3-9.
Just begin with the market phase 1A, which is the CMAC grant. So we've been working with the CH. They did provide INDOT with a stage 3 submittal for review. There were some state comments that are being responded to by SCH. So we're still waiting for the stage 3 approval on that project. And we are also working on the right-of-way acquisition of the public property. Part of that is that activity is somewhat delayed in part because of the stage 3 submittal and some of the paperwork associated with that. But in speaking with members of the SCH team, there is some organizing and administrative work that's being done at that level. So we hope to have a clear update right away next month. And we do a quarterly report in meeting with that university tomorrow. And that report was submitted today. So that is the update on CMAC. RTP. I sent out an email this afternoon to the Redevelopment Commission just to give you the latest update on that project. Over the last 2 weeks, there were 2 issues that came up on as we initiated construction in the northwest corner near Stanley Street, the lot that we brought. There was shrubs clearing, site clearing that was necessary. So that delayed the crews getting out there, and then we also had to revisit. I'm sorry.
Can I make a motion to go to recess?
Yes.
Roll call.
Commissioner Enslin,
Yeah.
Commissioner McCart,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes. Back in.
Just providing an update on the RTP section grants. As we initiated construction, Reeve Riley noticed that there were shrubs on the Stanley Street parcel that made it difficult to be able to start work. And then secondly, the quality of the ground was it's clay, very wet, again, making it more difficult. So as I emailed this afternoon, where we're at with the RTP is that we need to in speaking with Commissioner Loving, we authorized global engineering to go out and conduct testing services at the site, because there was a very narrow window and perfect weather conditions that day to have a team come out and do an assessment. They were able to assess that. They've made a recommendation on the type of subgrade surface that needs to be installed to adequately support the trail construction. With that recommendation comes the need to revisit the project timeline, because there's a process with needing to actually churn the soil, study that, let it dry a few days, so there's a period of time to examine the soil and the subgrade, and therefore we need to request a grant extension. So I did call down to the state Department of Natural Resources today, talk with our grant administrator to let them know that we've initiated the project. They were excited about that, but that we've run into unforeseen circumstances right at the beginning. So we are able, he didn't see an issue with us being able to request the grant, to receive the grant extension. We just need to submit a formal letter as to why, and I will be working on that this week. So this would also be looking to extend probably the RTP construction timeline 6 months. That kind of gets us went through the winter months. Asphalt is going to be closing soon. So we wouldn't be able to asphalt until the start of the next season of that. So that's the recent change to RTP. The action to support this activity is the need for the RDC to authorize the request to make a grant extension, just so knowing that you all support that effort. And then I'll work to prepare that letter and have their loving sign that.
I'll make a motion to authorize the grant extension request.
Second.
Discussion?
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensland,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarr,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes.
Then next is just as a board authorizing Global Engineering under their town contract to bill the RDC at its hourly rate for these testing services.
I move that we allow Global to bill the board at their hourly rate for testing services.
Second.
Discussion?
Commissioner Ensland,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarr.
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes.
And then next, we just want to requesting that the board authorize their quote for the subgrade treatment that's being recommended by Global Engineering, with the realization they would come back to us also with a second change order for that amount.
I'll make a motion to authorize Reed Riley to prepare the quote for the recommendation from Global.
Second.
Discussion?
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensland,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarr,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes.
And then the last action tonight is approval of change order 1 in the amount of $9,211.96. This supports the 1 foot wide shoulder stone to construct that 1 foot buffer alongside the trail, which at the last meeting we discussed was the lesson learned from Next Level Trails that we would want to carry out through the rest of the trail. So
Yeah, just.
Make a motion to approve the, was it Reed Riley for the 9,200?
92, 11, 96.
For the shoulder stuff.
Second,
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner McHarg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensland,
yes,
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
That completes the report on RTP. And then next we have John Rubel, Planned Environment Associates, here to give us the presentation on the draft plan that you've received via email. And I will introduce John.
Real quick, I'm sorry, Rob. I think we talked about.
I had them under Westport.
Okay.
Well, thank you, commissioners. As Tina said, you should probably have received the email copies and hard copies of the draft reports here. What we did is split this, originally this RFP came out as a develop report. We thought it would be more helpful for the town long term to have these as two separate reports. One, the operations and maintenance manual, that could be something that was within the street department, parks of wherever department. Going forward, that's a lot of the technical issues with the trail, how to take care of that. Well, the other document, the corridor plan, is a lot more of the kind of proposed work in the future, some of the expansion work, some of the considerations of landscape, reforestation, things like that, having those two different documents, maybe two potential end users, and kind of divide these into two separate volumes. I'll start by flipping through the corridor plan here, just give you kind of high level overview of what you'll see in the report as you get more into it. First page here, acknowledgements, kind of everybody we've talked to as far as departments and towns, stakeholder groups, and our project sponsor, like Michigan Coastal Program. The first page is just really a general overview on the Marquette Greenway in total, and then within Burns Harbor. A lot of this is for if this, somebody new comes on and some long for them as well. I'm sure most of these folks are pretty aware. In here, we did kind of recap what the stakeholder public engagement process was, some of the keynotes from there, the stakeholders. And this is part of the grant process. We want to make sure that this was recognized as a transparent process. And then the next page is kind of on the right side of those stakeholder notes. We're kind of some of the main issues and opportunities that kind of came out of those meetings. Kind of some bullet points here on top of the plan that we'll get into a little bit more detail going forward. So first I kind of started with operations and trail. Who owns what pieces of land where the trail goes. You've also heard in these meetings each time there's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. What are those segments? So try to map those out very clearly on here with the different colors too. So it's very easy to recognize where these different links are, where we're talking about the trails. One of these things, and police chief is here today too. One of the things that we talked about with the police department was the need for some location identification markers out there. There's large stretches, especially to the west here, where there's 3/4 of a mile before you see anything recognizable. There's a 911 call. Where are you at? By a bunch of trees. That's not super helpful. So if we can start developing things like that, incorporating on the trail. What we did is kind of did an initial placement about every 2/10 of a mile, 1/4 mile, 2/10 of a mile kind of frequency. So then the page accompanying that on the other side gets a little bit more into some write-ups about these issues. Here's an image of what these, location marker signs could be like. We talk about maybe the need for the parking to, eventually have some lighting in the parking lots to kind of promote that, a little bit past dusk use. Here for the early morning fishermen as well, just have more safety out there. Not ever lighting any of the trail itself necessarily, but maybe some of the parking areas. But one of the key things that you'll note down here is that to kind of help you better understand how much maintenance and take care of, we did kind of a swing at how many man hours it would take, so how many, man hours are there mowing, how many people, how much time is going to be integrated in that inspection reports too, on kind of a monthly basis. So a lot of that ties back into the operations and maintenance manual, but to kind of help the town as far as staffing goes, kind of understand, is this a half-time person that's needed? Is this a full-time resource too, as you start developing the trip? So kind of some keynotes, again, location signage, developing some, some work hours. After talking with streets departments and park department, think our recommendation is that the maintenance for the trail stays within the street department at this time. Park department is a very small department, a small budget, there's no full-time staff there. Well, the street department is used to mowing, they know how to, fix asphalt. From doing the roads here, it seems there's a lot of efficiencies to keep it within the streets department at this. Another thing too, is talking to the police department, is that there's gonna be a need for maybe some intergovernmental patrolling too. So, Burns Harbor Police is gonna be much quicker to respond to any incidents that happen on the trail in Porter and then in Portage too. And kind of in that new section that's gonna be taken there. So we know that the bikes have been purchased for the police department, but maybe in some of these quick things that maybe a long-term thing would be a four-wheeler or something for some quick patrol opportunities there. So that's kind of the operations here. We do get into a little bit of the ecology to kind of talking about how to maintain different areas and then what are kind of some of our potentials for the western parcels here. All the dark green you see is basically the old farm fields, the areas that have been disturbed, cleared over time. What you also see on the pink line is kind of the dividing line, the parcel line between the 60 acres the town owns, and then another 127 acres that's further south. So a lot of times this line bisects these green areas. So we're recommending as you're looking at this holistic, look at this holistically. Partner with these neighbors to the south there. And then also continue to collaborate with national parks of what their long-term goals are for this area too. But we did kind of provide some, if you wanted to, two options to consider would be, a reforestation effort through here, introducing some more of the native trees we would find in the area. We've kind of given some quick recommendations on how that would occur, what are some rough budget numbers for that. Or then another option would be maybe just, just managing the prairie as it is, providing some enhancements out there, introducing some additional wildflowers. And then there was an ecological assessment that was done that recommended getting maybe some American hazelnuts and kind of these large shrubs out there, which help kind of extend the pollinator life cycle by providing some shade for some nectaring species out there. So we've read a couple of recommendations here. We give kind of some of the rough acreage as far as these old farm fields go. So you can kind of start extrapolating some numbers of what these costs might be. And then the last thing too, we have noted some invasive species out there. We've been working a lot with Shirley Hines to kind of manage these areas. And I think long term, working with a partner like that to manage the native areas makes sense. Streets, but it's a very specialized kind of maintenance to being able to identify invasive species versus native species, not broadcasting herbicides out there. But there might be some stuff as far as the street department or the town is concerned with poison hemlock, poison ivy, as that gets close to the trail, being able to identify that anything that's a potential hazard for any visitors or users for the trail. And then kind of expansion goes that, we've got a little key plan here, some different numbers, some different key projects that have come out through the stakeholder process. Kind of reviewed on the next page to, again, the Lindy Dam access, the portage around that, getting a kayak launch at Westport at the end, terminus of Westport Road, getting to Lakeland Park, getting south of town. And then maybe as time goes, introducing some restrooms, some water fountains out there, the opportunity of adding shade structures or just adding shade trees and locations, and then, different, overlook seating opportunities out there. And then last branding, as the, trail comes into fruition, as Westport comes into fruition, find ways to, make this, a special place for the community too. And integrating the branding into art of green living, integrating steel. This is just a picture example of what it could be as far as public art that goes out there and kind of identification signage. So, and then kind of conclude with the next step. So I'll pause here for a second if there's any maybe questions on just kind of the corridor plan, and then obviously if you got some more time to review too.
No questions, but this is awesome.
Thank you.
Really good, very detailed. very good.
I was just curious more than anything, with regards to those signs or like the wayfinding signs or, 911.
Oh, sure.
Is there a way to try to get those signs consistent along the trail, or is every community gonna have like a different design, or is there gonna be coordination with the markers, so different law enforcement, so hey, we know that Portage is this, from this number to this, or Burns Harbor is this number to this number, and the next community down, and so there's some, just kind of like mile markers on an interstate.
Sure.
You know how far it is, and you kind of guess where it's at.
Sure.
Any type of consistency.
The long-term goal is there, yes, that there will be, but from everything we've heard from our stakeholders, there's nothing set in stone at this date. NERC and those agencies are kind of waiting for the trail to be almost fully complete before implementing that type of signage, but we understand that there might be a more near-term need. So is there maybe working with the police department, is there something simple on a wooden post with that's specific to where the 911 calls would come, but that they can identify in a short-term, low cost?
Well, I would think for law enforcement, that would be helpful, and I think just for people who are walking by.
Sure.
Oh, I walked 2 miles, I walked 5 miles,
Mhm.
kind of turn around to.
Yeah, but absolutely, the goal is not to have we don't start at zero every time we get into a new community.
Yeah.
To make it confusing, but it needs to be looked globally, and that's just not there yet, but we're identifying kind of a short-term need to.
Well, did Jeremy?
Exactly what Clay touched on is kind of what we talked about, which was you go to some of these other trails and you have mile markers going in different directions and you really don't know where you're at. And that's exactly what we talked about when we met, which was at the end of it, potentially having a consistent, like you said, I described I-94. I mean, if somebody told me at the 21-mile marker, I would know exactly where to go. Because unfortunately, like for our community, we're the only one situated near this trail. So if anyone's going to deploy in any kind of rescue situation, it's going to be our town. Everybody else is going to have to trailer all their equipment to get out there. We're going to be the first to deploy. So.
There's really kind of two kind of three, but we'll just do two. The pretense of a mile marker or whatever, sort of thing we've been talking about, but also clearly marking where the trail intersects with whatever road. In other words, I'm at the trail and this road, because I mean, if you ride some of these trails from like Griffith to Chesterton, you have no idea what the crossroad is on the trail. I mean, it was marked a few years ago by private individuals, but there's no official markings, or there wasn't back in the day, and you have no idea what the crossroad is, and don't expect there to be an official street sign within a tenth of a mile.
Sure, yeah.
So we need to mark all that stuff.
Well, and right now, mostly you're having local users that are using this, but as the trail is fully built in the other communities, this is going to become a commuting trail with people from New Buffalo to Chicago and everywhere in between while using this. So as much as they can understand where they're at, be able to communicate that in any sort of situation.
And just a word of caution, I mean, looking at the maps, I see, restroom here, and restroom over here in the future, but we should not assume that people are just going to know that, I mean, we know it because we live here, but if there's a public restroom for the use of people on the trail, it needs to be clearly marked on the trail.
Sure. No, and that's a good point. That's something that the report doesn't touch on, but the trailhead parking area should have an overall trail map there of what your context is. Within a mile, either direction, where can you find a restroom, where can you find another facility too. Okay, well, in respect to time here, I'm just gonna jump over to the other report, let's see, is this one? Again, operations maintenance, this is again a more technical document that could, be expanded on over time as more information, as more amenities come, as more different material types come on, but something that could live within the streets department. Again, overviews, some basic things about operations, and these are, maybe these are some notes for the town to, consider too, we're noting things that public access to this trail will most likely be 24 hours a day. As kind of a commuting route through here, that's not going to be on the facility. Parking, what to consider about parking, there's currently no signs out there about overnight parking, but going forward, something to maybe consider too. For sure. And we also talk a lot about here what are daily requirements, weekly requirements, monthly requirements. Again, those are our recommendations. As is, as we're, as town staff is available, as the need be, dailies might be every other day or every third day or something, but we're going to set in the bar high right now, and again, work with it. We're within budgets of what's reasonable here. So maintenance here, and what we did is kind of each page gets their own information on every element out there. So asphalt trail, what is that asphalt mix? How thick is it? Is it as a observer maintaining it? What are you doing daily, weekly, monthly, yearly? What are you looking for? And then what action should you be taking from it? So some of these things are very basic. Of you see the trash can is full, you would do the trash, but some things become a little bit more complicated once let's say concrete pavement that starts heaving too much, that becomes a trip hazard, that becomes an ADA issue, bigger, talk to your supervisor, a bigger project needs to be done. So we've tried to document everything that's out there currently. So you see just a lot of pages, and then benches getting into the model number, the make of that. So something breaks, somebody knows exactly who to call really quick, what color it was, how to get it fixed. So again, lots of pages, and I can see as more sections get built, more pages being added to this. Utilities right now, there's a couple culverts out there. But you have some other utilities. You have the Lindy, the NISCO lines, you have private utilities out there. But then I can see in the future too, tapping into the electrical, the water, the sanitary for restroom facilities, for parking to maybe a need in the future. During this year. And then the landscape as well. We really do kind of recommend for the native areas, continue collaborating with your partners here, your Shirley Highlands, national parks. But we think that there's going to be a mowing clearing area that's going to need to be done by the town. And then again, as mentioned before, kind of just being able to identify those really toxic plants that might be in close proximity to the trail. So this is a graphic from NDOT. It's not perfect. We want to work with you to refine it, but what it basically defines is a certain mowing and clearing zone for the town. So you would mow the 10-foot strip on either side of the trail, but then maybe another 10 foot out, you kind of check for, is that poison hemlock out there or something like that, or there are other weeds that are starting to encroach in this area. So maybe the town kind of manages a 20 foot off of either side of the trail corridor just to kind of keep that open and clean. But then kind of outside of that, more native areas is working with partners. Snow removal will be, I think something that's going to be anticipated on the trail long term. Talking to the streets department, they're putting a plow on their trucks right now to take care of that for last winter. I've been through a lot of these meetings. There's discussions about what loads of vehicles should be put on the trail long term. So this would be something to consider, only small RTVs with a snow blower, snow plow adaptment on there. That could be used for the snow, that could be used for patrolling, taking a look at the trail. So coordinating with Rob or streets department, this was something that they were looking at. And then at the end of this report, we kind of just included there if you want to get down to that level. There's some daily checklists for, if there's a new staff on there, hey, go on the trail, look for these things, yes or no if you have it, and then on the back side would be just a little map where they could mark where a certain location was for any reason. So just some checklists included in the back. So those are the two reports that we have together. Next steps here we presented today, I'd like to maybe within the next week or so get, any feedback from, commissioners here. Be happy to meet with any of you guys one-on-one, or if you guys want to give me a call next week, or even any comments, whatever works best for you. But then from there, I can take that in, and then we'd like to kind of package that up to share with our other stakeholder, groups, for this, particularly Shirley Hines, close to the commission, postal program, street departments. So using the rest of November, just to kind of vet this out, get everybody's feedback, and then what we're looking to do is kind of a week before the December presentation, have everything reincorporated, give you kind of a final report then that could be adopted and.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your maintenance schedule here, that shows like 1,856 per year, correct?
Yes.
Has anyone checked with the tree farm? Because that's almost 40 hours.
Yeah, it's like a 3/4 person. Right.
So we don't have it in our budget for another person, and our street department's capped pretty heavily. Has anyone talked to Rob about how this would work with him already being maxed? Has anyone?
Well, so
I'm not trying to be neat like rude, I legitimately, logistically, that I don't know how they would manage this.
Right.
That's a lot.
Right, so we met with Rob and we talked with him, so his guys are currently mowing the trail right now. But there's about 1 mile of trail and they're just mowing. That doesn't include like the inspections and stuff, so right now they have this, excuse me, kind of under control, their section, but what I'm trying to extrapolate is, you start adding on the other side of 149, you start adding another 2 miles on top of this, plus the things in Westport, and what I'm doing is identifying the potential at this point in time. Rob knows that this is coming. Rob and Pat talked about the level of maintenance here, but we just want to kind of put some sort of numbers to it to help justify why he might need additional resources.
And then, for plowing, how are they plowing? Like, are we plowing the trail as it is?
He says, yes, they currently do that. They're using it, they're putting a plow in the front of their pickup truck and plowing the trail.
Right, and that's a good idea, or to be on that road. Like that.
And not on the trail, that's why we were recommending to go to getting like a.
That's what I wanted to find out, like, is this something we need to start spending money in our budget for? Is there something that can be used that we already have? Like, because I thought that's what we talked about last year, that it wasn't a good thing, but they were kind of the other option.
What do other municipalities do with their trails, especially the ones that are not going right through the middle of town? So like Chesterton.
Yeah, I know Chester and the Prairie Dune Trail is plowed, yes.
Are they plowing that, or are they letting people, cross country ski?
No, those are plowed, those are plowed trails.
Just plan for where you think we'll meet up together, where is there?
Cornish will be plowed as far as I know, too, yes.
So do we have ideas about what we would need to be able to like realistically plow this, so we don't damage the road, should the trail more? Do we have any idea of like price wise what this would cost so that we can?
Yeah, Rob was working with Ray to get a quote for that equipment that he was looking at. Now, again, I think there's other options out there. That was a piece of equipment that him and I discussed too. But I'm sure that there's other things out there too, different price points as well.
Is not. And Commissioner Scott, the reason that we prepare this plan is to bring this level.
Oh, yeah, thanks. And then it's because this was the topic conversation, this was the topic conversation on council. I believe next year to begin with. So that's why if we need to find money in our budget, we need to know so that when we go into next year, we know what we're looking at.
Right.
That's we're looking at big projects. So if this is something that we need to get, then we need to find it in someone's budget or in the general budget. So that's all I was trying to. So I'll touch base with you.
Yeah, and everything in the report, I tried to identify either some sort of man hours or some sort of budget you need if you wanted to like take on something like adding a restroom or adding this, if we know there's a dollar to that too. Please review, and then if there's anything I can do to help some potential cost or something, anything that makes decision making easier for you guys.
You didn't put the Powerball, did you?
No.
Never know, right?
That's where we're at. I guess any other questions or comments? My only comment is if everybody wants this basically by the first week of December, so we can be ready for the meeting on 14th, so if everybody could by. Probably before Thanksgiving would be best, because once we get to Thanksgiving, nobody does anything until January. That's what I was hoping, if I could grab you guys before Thanksgiving, and your feedback, you get a response back, and just read through it, if you have any comments. Shoot your comments over so we get a number for this. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to call me or whatever's right now. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, old business number 2, Westport.
Just 2 items quickly under Westport. Last month, we had presented the Baker Tilly 2 invoices, and the RDC took action at your meeting to authorize the town council to make those payments. But during the town council meeting, Clerk Treasurer Jordan notified that no, that actually needs to come out of RDC funds. So tonight we are bringing back the Baker Tilly invoices. Those were attached in that email. If you needed to see them again, but there are 2 invoices. These are from over a year and a half ago. It's 2020. One in the amount of $11,250 and the second in the amount of $22,950. So we are looking for action tonight to authorize payment of the Baker Tilly invoices.
Make a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Inslee,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarg,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes.
Second clarification, at last month's meeting, the RDC approved or authorized Treasurer Jordan to proceed with establishing an escrow account. And she subsequently informed us that that is a resolution, a formal resolution that needs to be initiated. So we will do that and bring that back to this board in December. The resolution.
It's crazy, December.
Do you need me to draft something or you gotta prepare it and send it to me? for
Yeah,
review?
I was gonna work with Baker Tilly and Jane
Okay,
on that, but I can work with you.
no, just let me know if you need me to do anything on that. Because I won't remember unless you.
One thing before we move away from Westport, especially in the Westport area, we are gonna need to have the improved shoulders on the trail through the Westport section. So they need to be advised that we want to build to that spec, at least to that spec. Because in that section especially, there's going to be a lot of maintenance vehicles driving up and down that trail and crossing over the trail and breaking off chunks of the edge. So we are going to need, each section to be improved, not just the one we're working on.
Yes, and Commissioner Ensign, we did relay that to Avon Marsh for our Marquette Greenway projects that they're overseeing, but they are also part of the holiday team and have done the engineering of the trail through the Westport section. In that area, we are going to be crossing some of the new streets that will be developed. There's, sidewalks that are part of that development. So the structure may be a little bit more urban town center feel as opposed to what we've had here in the more natural areas, but they are aware that, we want to, look, have that reassurance of the appropriate base for first trail.
Well, I mean, the reason I'm saying is one, I don't want to assume, that everybody's on board, with this, but two, I mean, if you look in the Ameriflex, they have outside contractors taking care of all the mowing. And maintenance of the flower beds and maintenance of the, sprinkler systems and whatnot. And those people are gonna be using lots of heavy equipment to just mow every 2 weeks. And, in other words, the trail needs that extra margin of support on the edges. It may need more than what we're talking about, but it needs at least that, and we need to spec that out. And if there's gonna be an added cost, they may have already worked this in, I don't know.
For the Westport section, I think that will be addressed when we go to initiate that. So they know that they need to incorporate it. I don't think it's currently in the designs, but that's something that we'd be moving towards when we're advancing that section. So I will definitely relay what you're speaking to tonight.
Well, I mean, we had a ton of engineers out here. And not one of them spoke up and said, say, if you don't want, the edges of your trail spotted off within a year of building it, you ought to spend a little extra money and put a 1 foot shoulder on it of heavy gravel, not one of them volunteered that information. Right? So we can't assume that, that the guys over here are gonna do the same thing, are gonna say, I had a famous meeting with bricklayers one time, and they said, well, what kind of job do you want us to bid on? We can do it last 10 years, we can do it last 30 years, and we can do it last forever, all right? But those are 3 completely different jobs, what kind of job do you want? It's the same thing, I won't be hearing a year from now, well, and that's not your fault. I mean, it's not, specifically, it's all because we don't know, we're not engineers. We rely upon them and we're paying them to give us advice.
I was just gonna weigh in on that too. One thing I think for Westport, it's not in the report, but I think should be considered along with the shoulder, is actually maybe even a concrete curb. That are flush curbs, and Portage does that with their trails by Ameriflex too. That way you don't have the loose gravel on the edge and an urban situation that gets thrown everywhere. It kind of holds it in like a roadway too. So they could build it with like a flush curb, concrete curb section. Now, there's additional cost to that, obviously, but that's a typical urban trail type of business.
Something to consider. So maybe bring that up and see what they think about the cost of that. Seriously,
I'll follow up with Harbor Marsh on the design for that.
thank you.
Thank you, Brad. New business, anybody? Approval of claims register.
Second.
Gee. This guy. Roll call.
Commissioner Insland,
Yeah,
Commissioner McCart,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Living.
Yes. Approval of financial report month of October 2022.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Commissioner McCart,
Yes.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensland,
Yes,
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes. Good of the order. No Sarah. Entertain the motion.
Make motion to approve. Adjourn.
Second.
Discussion.
Who's taking the second?
I thought it was Roseanne, but that's maybe because she was just louder. Flip a coin. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bozak,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensland,
yes.
Commissioner McCart,
Yes.
Commissioner Loving.
Yes.